Good morning, everybody, and welcome to my brand new podcast, Invest Across Borders. I'm Lauren Cohen. I'm an international lawyer, a realtor, and a cross-border expert, and I love working with people and having an impact on them, expanding their businesses across borders, because at the end of the day, we believe in helping you invest, live, work, and play across borders, because without play, work is a little boring, right, Carolyn?
That's right.
So I have a very special guest with me today who happens to be a business partner of mine that I've never met in person, although I feel like she's my soul sister. And it's been an amazing journey through COVID, really. That's when all of this has happened. So there is a silver lining, like my nonprofit, Find My Silver Lining. There is a silver lining in COVID. And I think that that's one of the things that I'm so proud of our relationship about, Carolin. Carolin Ricciardi is an amazing entrepreneur and business owner from Calgary, Alberta. And she runs several companies, but one of the companies is a coaching program called Creative Real Estate Academy. And we have partnered to take Creative Real Estate Academy not only across North America, but across the globe to help business owners and people that are just starting to get into real estate investing and people that are experienced real estate investors to find creative ways to invest in real estate. So Carolin, I could introduce you and tell all these wonderful things about you, like a mom of four, built these businesses, came from, originally she was born in Chile, right?
Yes.
And
right.
Came to Canada when she was 4, is that right?
Yes.
And has made a huge mark. And your sister, how far north of you is your sister that you went to visit the other day?
She's like 4.5 hours north.
So it's really cold up there.
Yeah, it's extra cold.
It's extra cold. So me being from Toronto, living here in South Florida, I do not see what Carolyn sees behind her windows there. And that's not a fake background. There's leaves falling from the trees, and she has snow on the ground in the middle of, or almost the end of October. Now, I remember in Toronto on Halloween, once or twice when my brother and I were out trick-or-treating, there would be flakes and flurries, but never real snow. Calgary is a little different. So Carolyn, why don't you introduce yourself and share your amazing journey with us and tell the listeners why you're so excited to focus on investing across borders, and the fact that you're not only in Canada and the US, but in Mexico and expanding into so many other countries.
Yes, thank you so much, Lauren. Thank you for inviting me on and for that beautiful introduction. I truly appreciate it. And I'm grateful for you coming into my life. Like you said, it's been a blessing through COVID that we could connect. And actually, as I said to you, I think the first time we were on the phone call, I feel like you were sent from above, because I'm like, you're like the missing.
I was sent from below, down
to you're the missing link that I needed for being able to go into the US market, because I've had that experience. And so I know what it's like as a Canadian working cross borders and the challenges that come with that, which we will get into later. But as you mentioned, I immigrated to Canada when I was 4 years old. And that for me had a huge impact, obviously, when it comes to having a home and what that means to actually have a place that you call your own, and just how that impacts your life to have that stability. And so I always had this desire to do something in real estate, but as a lot of investors, initially the concern is, do I have enough capital to do it? And do I have to be a realtor? And do I have to, all these questions that stop a lot of people from getting involved in real estate investing, because that's what we believe. Traditionally, that is how you would do real estate, but we've discovered that does not have to be that way. Oh. And so, my journey went from, I think really diving into what I was told was the way to be able to build a stable life for yourself. And so I went and did it and got the university degree and got a government job and had the house and the cars and everything. And then at one point, and 4 kids, yes. and then found myself really questioning my purpose in life and thinking, like, is this really it? Like I did everything that that society and the media tells us we should all be striving for,
Yeah.
but I felt so extremely empty, and it was very discouraging, especially with with being blessed with so many things, but still feeling so empty inside. And that's when, I had this huge transformation, as you know, in 2013. And it really made me realize, what, it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter how many kids you have or don't have, or what capital you have or don't have. There are ways you can still live out whatever dreams you have. And that was really my learning for me, is that just because I was at a certain stage in my life, it didn't mean everything ended and I needed to live this monotonous life. So I restructured everything. And by everything, I mean, I even went through a separation and started to really live out the life the way that I wanted to design it. And in that process, went in full time into real estate, eventually quit my government job. And the first part of that actually started through investing in the US and in Columbus, Ohio, because I could see that obviously that market was a lot more accessible than the Canadian market, especially through traditional means. Because at that point, I was still really doing real estate traditionally, buying them and, fixing them up and turning them into rentals. And that was our plan. But the challenge that came up with doing that cross borders, it was all it was like walking into the dark with like giant knives and not knowing what you're going to hit, because it's like we had no direction from a lawyer, we had no direction from an accountant, and then as we're there building out this business, it's scrambling to try to connect with the right people. And
So
it
can
was
I stop you for just a second?
Yeah.
Because that's exactly, as you know, that's my whole MO, is
Yes.
not letting people kind of go in with a bunch of knives and try to figure it out and
Yes.
weed your way through the brush. My whole thing is about helping people make sure that they have everything in place. And if they don't
Exactly.
have everything in place, getting those pieces in place for them, kind of having their back. Now,
Absolutely.
let's talk a little bit about your experience with Columbus, because it's really a perfect example of why I do what I do. So
Absolutely.
how did you come to, and we won't talk about the name of the company, although everybody would know it, but how did you come to this US company that was bringing opportunities to Canadians?
Well, it was ultimately it's the law of attraction, because I was very, I had this deep desire at that point in my life to learn real estate investing very rapidly. And so I was willing to pay for that type of coaching. And so I set that intention. And of course, this organization came through Canada, as many of them do, coming to do seminars and
Mm-hmm.
and showing what they're capable of. And the one thing that I did really appreciate about this company is they did provide a lot of information, but it was all US based information. So for me to apply that to Canada, I actually had to do all of the legwork and homework to go and convert it to be applicable in the province that I live in, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I did manage to, within 5 months do a wholesale deal, which was wonderful because it gave me that experience of like,
Yep.
oh wow, this actually works. But um, but then of course, because of everything that I was learning, it made sense for me to go into the US market, like I said, because it was a lot more accessible, right? So like a house here, a duplex here in Calgary, Alberta, where I live, for both sides, it would probably cost me 500,000 at a minimum. Where in Columbus, we were buying duplexes for 30,000, 20,000.
Insane.
It was insane, right? So it was like a kid at the candy store. But
Yep.
the challenge was, through this coaching platform that I was part of, they did say, oh, you need to have a corporate structure, but not for Canadians. They didn't say this is how you do it. It was like, this is how you do it in the US.
Right. And that's the biggest challenge, is that when you're dealing with cross-border people, cross-border investors,
Mhm.
there are the implications of setting something up in the US or in Canada without paying any attention to how that impacts you on the other side. Like in, in the States, well, in the States, it's worse because everybody in the US is very US centric. We don't generally, people, Americans, no offense to Americans, I happen to be an American, but Canada is a little tiny piece of the puzzle. So it's
Yeah.
like, oh, the Canadians, yeah, whatever. Like, no big deal. It's like, a little piece. But the reality is that Canada is a separate country with separate tax laws and separate rules and separate filing requirements and everything. And whatever works here, and corporations, and whatever works here, if you set it up in the US, if you're not paying attention to those Canadian requirements, which is exactly what happened with you, you're going to be hit. There was a client that we were bringing into Creative Real Estate Academy, which we'll talk about in a minute. And that client was on the hook for over 100,000 Canadian, so $10 US. No, I'm just kidding. But over 100,000 Canadian because of much the same situation. And really, this is all these are obstacles that you can overcome with the right guidance.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot of people that look at both sides. It's a big deal.
No, it was very difficult to find anybody that could give us any sort of direction in terms of how to structure things properly in Canada and in the US. And we went through, meeting with a lot of accountants and even trying to think. Yeah, mainly this is the crazy thing, is that mainly we were just referred to accountants. It never came across our table like, there's a lawyer that could help you with the cross-border structure, nothing like that. So we were just focusing on the accounting side to protect ourselves. But it was painful because some people we met, they were telling us it was like a $20,000 process, but it felt wrong because there was no knowledge on the Canadian side. They'd be like, this is what you need to do on the US. And we were like, but how does that connect back to our Canadian corporation?
And they were like, who cares?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
does it really matter? This is what's important.
Exactly.
Let's make money. Just make money.
Yeah, I don't know. And I don't, what I mean? Like that was, I don't care. And so it was really frustrating. And I think, honestly, like I am really grateful that I ended up pulling away from that business, mainly because of differences I had with those business partners that I had started that with. And I think it was, in the end, I think it was a blessing, because I don't even know that everything was ever really set up properly.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, that's pretty common. And I will say something else. As a cross-border lawyer, I'm not advising you. Have I ever advised you on anything to do with tax structure?
No.
Because why? Because all of us should stay in our lanes.
Yes.
And I'm not a tax expert. And that's why I work with a Canadian tax expert and an American tax expert.
That's right.
And both of them understand the cross-border stuff. And that's the critical thing. There are more than enough professionals on both sides of the border, especially Canadians in the US, that have those Canadian designations, that are CPAs in Canada, that work in the US, or that specialize in Canada, like one of our partners, in building your infrastructure in Canada as the base or the starting point from which to springboard your US investment. And if you do it the right way, not only is it going to benefit you tax-wise, but there's another benefit. And we talked about this a little bit, Carolyn, is the 1031 exchange, which is when you take a property, an investment property, and you sell it and you buy a new property, a similar in kind property, similar in price, within a certain period of time. You identify it in 45 days, you close in 180 days. And that's available to any investor in the US, even foreign investors, including Canadians. Here's the problem. Canadians are told, you can do this, and they can. But then when it comes to Canada Revenue Agency, they say, oh, sorry, we're disqualifying that. We don't actually accept that, even though they said so in the US. However, if you set up your corporate structure properly, you can qualify. And
Right.
that is a huge opportunity because you're deferring capital gains. And a lot
Absolutely.
of people just don't get this.
Mhm.
So it's just showing how important it is to really have your structure set up properly. Now, let's go back to my favorite subject with you. Well, there's so many. I mean, we could talk for 6 hours and you guys would probably fall asleep. But my, what, so Creative Real Estate Academy, this is your brainchild. Tell me, what is Creative Real Estate Academy and what is your vision for this amazing company,
Sure.
coaching program, system, everything?
Thank you. So this actually came as a byproduct of when I started doing creative real estate in Canada, because when I left that partnership in the US, I was still physically living in Canada. So I was working on that from my home in Canada. But when I came back in terms of looking at doing real estate in Canada, at first I was like sticker shocked, and I was like,
Yeah.
how the hell am I going to get into this market where, like I said, a single family home in a minimum is like 300,000. And so again, putting that intention out there, I connected with a friend of mine who taught me about agreement for sale, which in the US is subject to. And that just really, for me, opened up the doors to the possibilities of acquiring and building a portfolio with little to minimal amount of cash up front,
So tell
right?
us about what this is, agreement for sale.
Sure. So the way that this structure works is ultimately you are doing a purchase agreement with the original homeowner, but the closing date is actually future dated. So instead of, closing in a month like you would traditionally, you are setting up a term with these owners where you're going to close in the next 3 or 5 or 6 years. And again, this is something you negotiate with the homeowners. But the beauty of that from an investor perspective is it gives you the opportunity to acquire really an unlimited amount of properties
Mhm.
with, like I said, sometimes no cash down. And a lot of times it's little cash downs. And when I say little, I mean like $5,000 to $10,000 down. And
Like buying a
so
tax deed.
yeah, exactly. And the beautiful thing about this is that you're not having to go qualify
No
anywhere. You're not
qualifying.
there, you're not limited by, oh, as an investor, you're already tapped out on your mortgages, so now you're having to put 20% down. There's nothing like that. And that's the beauty of it, is that it helps you build that portfolio.
Mhm.
And depending on what your exit strategy, if you're building rentals or if you're doing rent to own, it creates that opportunity so that you have time now to get prepared for that exit strategy down the road. So if it's a rental, you're going to want to build it so that it's a cash flowing asset, and it's easy for the bank to want to give you a loan at that point, a mortgage, because you've shown that this property is cash flowing. We do rent to own primarily in my business. And so with those properties, we make sure that we have these buyers lined up for the end of our term. So we're not actually ever having to qualify for a mortgage on those properties. So it's
It's a
beautiful
beautiful
because
thing.
it
And
is
the
a
same
beautiful
the
thing.
same applies south of the border too, which
That's
is
right.
also beautiful. And the bonus is that the kind of win-win-win part of it is that you're also saving the homeowner from foreclosure, from huge impact on their credit, from all kinds of negative implications by taking them out of their obligation. So why don't you share a
Absolutely.
little about that?
Yeah, like you said, that is the biggest attraction for me of this model, was being able to help people, because it doesn't matter what market you're in. Yes, where I work, it has been a depreciated market for quite a few years, but even in markets where it is hotter, it is more active, there's always going to be people that, for whatever life circumstance they're in, they can't carry their property anymore. And right now, you and I know that we are going to see this in a huge number with what's happened with COVID,
Big time.
unfortunately, right?
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, a lot of people have lost their employment, and so they're in a position where they just can't carry on with that monthly holding cost of a property. And so their option uh, typically is just like looking at letting it go into foreclosure, or hoping that they can sell it before it goes down that road. But the beautiful thing about this structure is we work with those families and those individuals before they get to that point,
Yeah.
and we take that whole burden off their shoulders. So now they don't have to worry about the holding costs for this property, any maintenance, anything that could come up, and they're free to go and you know rent if they need to rent, or buy a smaller property, or whatever it is that they need to move on with their life, right? So that is the most rewarding part of this structure. And then on the flip side, with the rent to own, is being able to give people the opportunity to become homeowners that would typically not get qualified today with a mortgage, with a traditional bank, for whatever reason. And so
Mhm.
it's just aligning um, these two individuals. We're really like marrying the two, right? We have these people that need to get out, these people that want to get in, and then we're the middleman. And so it's a really, like I said, it's a beautiful structure, and ultimately it's just very rewarding to be able to help people that way.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Hmm.
So what is your mission or vision with Creative Real Estate Academy, like going forward? What's next?
Oh, well, as you know, my mission with creating the Creative Real Estate Academy is to really give people these tools and resources so that anyone around the world can take the same information and implement it in their market. So whether you're in Canada, the US, and like you said, around the world. So I really want to be able to empower people to realize, like, no matter where you live, you can get into your market and do creative real estate investing. And even in our group right now, we have one student from South Africa, and it was wonderful to have him yesterday on our call. Uh, but that kind of stuff just fuels me, because I know that he's being empowered with new tools and looking at real estate from a different perspective, where he can
Mhm.
become creative and actually start to build a portfolio without having to go the traditional route, as a lot of people believe they have to. So I'm on a mission to get this out to the world. I want people all over the world, um, to be able to learn what we're teaching, and implement it, like I said, whether it's to find their own home for their family, or
Mhm.
if it's to build a real estate portfolio. And one of the things that I want to complete within the next year of us working together is translating what we have into Spanish, because I know there's a huge community, of course, with throughout Latin America and Mexico
Humongous.
and Spain,
Even in the States, people that
Yes,
don't speak
exactly.
English as well.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and being able to just have it available in that language, because of course I speak Spanish, so I feel more inclined to be able to get the information out there in that language. But again, it's just empowering people. That's what really, as you have seen, the
I have.
the greatest joy is listening to students that are like, oh my gosh, they're just over the moon that they have taken what we taught them and it works, and they've built their portfolio in such a short period of time.
Let's use an example. So let's talk about the
Sure.
couple that came from Toronto
Sure.
with a
Yeah.
lovely, lovely pregnant partner,
Yeah.
and they lost their jobs due to
Yeah.
COVID and moved west to Calgary. And tell us what happened next.
Yeah, so when I met them, they actually came, I think they came through, um
Facebook?
well, actually no, she had heard me speak on another podcast.
Okay.
And then she saw that, yeah, through Facebook, that I had a webinar, and then they joined, and were very interested in getting involved. So they came into the group, and they had previously been learning how to do wholesale for about 6 months without any success. And so when they came in and learned very quickly the process of agreement for sale and how to find properties and
Mhm.
negotiate, within probably a week of being in the program, she's telling, like asking questions like, I have this property, what, how do I do this? How do I proceed with this? And then she quickly jumped into some of our additional offerings that we have for more support for students. And that led her to, within 4 weeks of being in, getting her first property. And she couldn't, I think they were like just in shock that this was actually happening. And
I think they're still in shock.
yeah, I was gonna say, I think I actually just walked through a property with her. When was this? On Thursday? Yeah, yesterday. And she was saying that to me, like, I still can't believe like
Right.
what is happening, because right now, and this is 2 months in, because then
2
they joined.
months, not
2
2
months.
years, 2 months.
2 months, because
They're
after
in their
the
5th
first
or
month,
6th right now, is that right?
yeah, and they, and like I said, it's, for me, it's interesting because she often asks, and some of the other students, like, I don't know how I could ever thank you. And my response is always like, what fuels my soul is seeing you guys succeed. And that's what does it for me with this, is just seeing you guys taking what I created, and that I know it works, and you implemented it, and you're seeing that success. And that's all I need. That makes me happy.
We
And
all,
so, yeah.
and so that brings me to the name of the company that your partner's on, which is Cardia, which means heart in Greek, because at the end of the day, it's all about being heart-centered. And I think everybody in that group is very heart-centered.
Yes.
And the beautiful part about the group that Carolyn has created, and that's now, we're also offering one-on-one coaching, but the beautiful thing is that within the group, there are joint ventures and collaborations. I mean, we only have less than 60 people in the group. And I would say at least half of them have collaborated on something together at this point, which is amazing. And when did you actually formally start the group? In January?
No, June, the end of June.
Oh, wow.
Well, actually, the end of June is when we launched, and that's when we did our first webinar. So we had students coming in at that point. So it's very,
we did an event.
It's very baby new, but yeah, we did it. We did that event we did the event in August, and that was, as you know, it just like,
it was amazing.
Was on
We're
fire.
doing another event the beginning of December called Empowered Women of Real Estate.
Yes.
And it's going to be free, and we're going to have the most amazing speakers, short 2 days of either 3 or 4 hours, we haven't decided, but you should all join. Everybody that wants to invest in real estate, whether it be within your home country or across borders, talk to Carolyn. We will help you, because at the end of the day, if you want to have the lifestyle that you deserve, you need to look. Oh my gosh, I see this, the
smoke.
Oh, it's been so long. I don't remember.
It's so cold out that
my gosh,
my air exchange is smoking behind me.
How cold is it?
That's a good question. I'm gonna say probably, well, let me see. I don't even want to guess, because -11, that's all.
A -11. Now that's Celsius for all you Americans, okay? So that's like about +8 degrees Fahrenheit. OMG. And it's October 23rd. Just saying, okay. Mom, this is why I'm not in Canada. Love you, but.
Yeah, exactly. I don't blame you.
But anyway, the point is that we really, our hearts are focused on helping other people achieve their dreams, achieve their Canadian dreams, their American dreams, their dreams of investing. And the best, most productive way to create a path to wealth, long-term wealth, residual wealth, is to build a real estate portfolio. Mm-hmm. And another thing you mentioned at the beginning, do you need to be a realtor? No, you don't need to be a realtor. However, there are really great benefits of being a realtor if you're involved in real estate investing, particularly in being a realtor south of the border, because it's much easier, much less expensive. It doesn't take a year. And there are ways to do this even for Canadians. So talk to us about that. Carolyn, tell us how to reach you, please.
Sure, absolutely. And I want to say I agree with you 100%. And again, this is another reason why I was so excited when we met, because here in Canada, the only reason that I don't push more of my students to get their license is because it is a pain to get it. It is very painful, it's very expensive, but in the US, it's just a no-brainer to get licensed, because now you skip a whole part of the real estate investing, which is finding a realtor that can pull comparables
Comps
or
and everything.
properties and look at properties. And so yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's like a must have if you're doing US investing, is do that, because it's easy to get and inexpensive, relatively inexpensive. But yes, if anyone is interested on learning more about the Creative Real Estate Academy, you can reach us at, what do we have set up for that? I'm like, well, you can reach me at my email through Cardia on both sides. So then I can direct you to coming to one of our webinars or having a call with Lauren and I. But my email is Carolin, Carolin, at Cardia, Kardia, realestate.com.
That's
I think
Carolyn with an I, not a Y.
that's right. And no E at the end.
No E.
Yes. And yeah, and I'd be happy to direct you, because the other thing, and I know you mentioned this a little bit, Lauren, but even for people who are looking to do passive investing, so that means you're not actively wanting to, go find the property and maintain it and do all that kind of stuff. This is extremely valuable, because as an investor, you need to know how to analyze a deal that's coming your way.
Yeah.
Right. So if somebody's offering you an opportunity, you better know how to read that information and ask the right questions so that you are
Absolutely.
protecting yourself in that investment. So I encourage everybody, regardless of what their goal is with real estate, to learn the basics of real estate investing, which is what we offer at Creative Real Estate Academy. So
Yep. Thank you.
yeah.
And also, Carolyn has a lot of profiles on Cardia on Instagram and Facebook. And if you would like to join the group, we can talk to you about that. It's really an awesome group. It's growing every day. I think we add more people each and every day.
Yeah.
And thank you, as always,
Thank
for your
you.
time. And I am going to sign off for everybody to think about how I can help you. Carolyn can help you to consider ways to invest, live, work, and play across borders. Because at the end of the day, not everybody will want to stay in the cold all winter. This winter, you may not have a choice.
I know I don't want to. So
Oh, by the way, let's very quickly mention that Carolyn is also a partner in several developments in Mexico. And that's a really big deal too, because there's a lot of ways to invest in real estate, not just, like I said, in Canada and the US, but also in Mexico. So we can't forget about that. We could talk for hours. We'll bring you back on. We'll probably have a regular show. And thank you so much. I am going to sign off and wish you a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one.